Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. An article in Grunge today, or actually yesterday, excuse me, by William Kennedy, had interviewed a person who is a body language expert, and basically there seems to be no deception with regard to David Grusch, who testified before the House Oversight Committee on Wednesday. And anyway, I'm going to read some of this article here. It says, in July 2023, the House Oversight Committee's National Security Subcommittee heard testimony from retired Air Force officer David Grusch, a one-time military intelligence officer who claims to have insider information on a decades-old top-secret Pentagon program related to UFOs or unidentified flying objects, now commonly referred to as UAPs, should be just UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, should be unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Included in Grusch's testimony were shocking allegations about what the Pentagon knows about possible extraterrestrial life visiting the Earth and how long they've known it. Grusch also alleged that the Pentagon has been involved in UAP crash recovery for decades. He also said it is reverse engineering technology found in the debris via behind-the-scenes shuffling of money to ensure it never has to face congressional scrutiny, CBS News reports. When asked by lawmakers how far parts of the U.S. government had gone to conceal this information, Grusch declined to comment, though he did imply threats of retaliation were significant, according to NPR. Grusch also was flanked by two fighter pilots who also testified about their own UAP encounters. News of possible alien life visiting Earth and potential government cover-up is greeted with equal parts interest and skepticism, and much of what Grusch and the two former pilots told lawmakers raised as many questions as it provided answers. But according to body language expert Jess Ponce III, co-author of Awesome 7 Keys to Unlocking the Speaker Within, speaking exclusively with Grunge News from his opening statement, Grusch delivered his words with vigor and conviction. I just want to stop there for a second. These people who are body language experts, I actually check out. There's a YouTube channel called The Behavior Panel, and sometimes I check it out. It's a pretty popular channel. They almost have 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And it's these 4 experts who know how to read body language, and they all give their opinions on different people who are accused of crimes, things like that. Sometimes they talk about even people in the UFO in the UFO communities, like people like Bob Lazar. This guy here, Jess Ponce III, told Grunge News that while giving his opening remarks to the House Oversight Subcommittee, Grusch seemed very proud to be making this statement and truly believed what he was reading. After examining Grusch's opening remarks, Ponce III found no conflict in his body language. Rather, he is focused on his words, Ponce III said. There is enthusiasm in his voice and a subtle excitement in his cadence. He's eager to speak. So basically, it doesn't seem like there's any deception going on here with related to Grusch. There does seem later on, he talks about how some of the things that Grusch was talking about later on seemed like he was coached. But I think that's pretty much normal, I believe, for these kind of hearings. I mean, you're going to want to be practiced up a little bit on how you're going to relay certain kind of information when you're testifying under oath. So I don't see that that's an issue, and it doesn't seem like Ponce III here thinks it's an issue either. Anyway, we'll continue looking at this article. It says, as well as alleged UAP crash recovery, NPR reports Grusch said the government has found non-human biologics in some cases, and that parts of the United States government have known about non-human or extraterrestrial life since at least the 1930s. Adding credence to Grusch's testimony, in 2019 he was involved in 2 government inquiries into reported UAP phenomenon. When Grusch asked for access to information about the Pentagon's UAP wreck recovery, which he called a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program per CBS News, his requests were denied. But since agreeing to come forward, he, along with others investigating the matter, have been exposed to what was, in his words, administrative terrorism. Let me just stop there for a second. Now, somebody asked me about this in the podcast in Spotify, in the questions under Spotify. Somebody had brought this up, asked what was, because that was at the 1/18/04 moment where Grusch was talking about administrative terrorism. And basically what Grusch was talking about during that section of the hearing is that people are apparently getting threatened behind the scenes. I guess only time will tell if this is true or not. But a lot of people suspect that over the years that this thing has happened. We don't know what Grusch has been told, with regard to this. Hopefully he's going to relay some of this information in closed meetings in a skiff with these some of these Congress people, and we're going to get into that in a minute, actually. As reported by NPR, Grusch said the tactics used were very brutal and very unfortunate and hurt me both professionally and personally. He stopped short of alleging murder, but said he could only answer questions in a sensitive compartmented information facility, or SCIF, a heavily fortified space where highly classified government information is discussed, per the Washington Post. Now, let me just stop there for a second. There was allegations of, he's heard before, he said in interviews before that he did hear that people were murdered. It just wasn't mentioned in this. He didn't say it there. He said he needs to talk about that in secret with these people. Continuing here, it says, when pressed on the matter of risk for coming forward with UAP-related allegations, body expert Ponce III told Grunge that Grusch seemed very appropriate in what he says and does not say, and that you can see that he has been coached. Grusch provides very little detail as to how he and others have been targeted, but Ponce III noted he did use the word brutal, which is a strong characterization, and his expression and use of pause reinforced this sentiment. So, again, there's not really seeing any sort of deception here, maybe some coaching, and that's about it. As far as personal knowledge of people who have been harmed in an alleged cover-up, Ponce III noted Grusch simply replied yes. That response hung in the courtroom for what felt like minutes, the body language expert said. Simple and direct. That statement said quite a lot. He was appropriate, concise, and certain in delivering this one-word response. It was then followed up by personally, emphasizing that he has information no one else might have. But when asked if anyone had been murdered, Ponce III noted that Grusch again noted he had to direct that question to the authorities. Former Navy pilot Ryan Graves, who claimed to have seen evidence of UAP, also told the subcommittee, I urge us to put aside stigma and address the security and safety issue this topic represents. If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it is an issue for science. The American people deserve to know what is happening in our skies. It is long overdue. So there's that. Okay, now, again, these people, these experts, these body language experts, they're pretty good at what they do, I think. I mean, are they right all the time? No. But so this guy here is saying that Grusch there's no deception. He's not seeing any deception other than some coaching before going in there. But that's, Grusch believes everything he's saying. So I know a lot of people out there say they don't believe in him, but you have a body language expert here saying, well, he doesn't see anything really out of the ordinary. So I think that's something to think about. But anyway, now there was a letter from Tim Burchett that he has sent to Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House. And this is what it says in this letter. It says, yesterday, under oath and before the House... This was a letter that he sent the day after, on Thursday. Yesterday, under oath and before the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, Mr. David Grusch, an Air Force veteran and 14-year intelligence officer, testified that the Pentagon has been keeping Congress in the dark concerning unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP. Historically, UAP have been called by other names, UFOs in particular, but despite the changing alphabet soup, our concern and the concern of our constituents remain constant. Mr. Speaker, we ask that you immediately establish a select committee outside the jurisdiction of any standing committee with subpoena authority to go out with the task of collecting information from the Pentagon and elsewhere for the benefit of the public and to discharge our constitutional, legislative, and oversight roles. Let me just stop there for a second. Now, this would be good. If this were to happen, they have a select committee where they could actually subpoena people. Now we're getting somewhere. I mean, can you imagine them? Who one of the people I think they would be subpoena? At least two of the people would probably be Dr. Eric Wilson, Dr. Eric Davis and Admiral Thomas Wilson, of the two who played the part in the famous Wilson-Davis memo. Those notes that were taken by Eric Davis back in the early 2000s with Admiral Wilson, who said he was in contact with the gatekeepers who told him that he has no business, that they're not going to read him in on the program. He basically was told that, there is recovered craft, but he's not going to be part of that. He can't be part of that. And then when Wilson was upset about that. He went to his higher ups, and they told him that if you don't stay away from this, you'll lose your position. They threatened him basically. So it would be nice to get someone like him in front of the Congress, in a setting like what we saw the other day. Anyway, continuing with this letter, it says, this issue is much bigger than the news cycle. It represents a confluence of concerning governmental actions that indicates a lack of forthrightness on the part of the Pentagon and intelligence community. No governmental program, no matter how sensitive, can be outside the view of Congress. And yet, the executive branch routinely redacts and entirely withholds information in other domains that we are entitled to, and is doing so here. By establishing a select committee to investigate the United States government's response to UAP, the 118th Congress will have an opportunity to work through more significant issues of government oversight, including lack of budget transparency, overclassification, and unwillingness to respond to congressional oversight on a discrete issue that is readily understandable by the public and which is of grave concern to our nation. Yes. So that's another good step by Tim Burchett. He seems to be probably the most serious person right now in the Congress. I mean, there's a few of his colleagues are with him, but he's been making the most strongest statements recently. Now, we did have some other things from some of his colleagues. Representative Luna, for instance, is one of the people who are in Congress who is pushing this. And we have some people in the Senate too, like Kirsten Gillibrand, as well as Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, surprisingly. So it does seem like things are happening in Congress. Although, now I did, in my recent podcast, the one before this one, I was talking about how the mainstream media pretty much, I was disappointed. Now I did say though during that, I want to point out there were some outlets that provided some decent coverage of it. For instance, News Nation has been doing a good job at this for the most part. I think for months now, as well as I thought CBS News did a pretty good job. I still have an issue when some of them actually get acronyms wrong. I mean, that to me is just. To me, it feels like a lack of integrity. They don't really care about it. They're not taking it seriously. When you're getting acronyms wrong, when you're not updating the language that's being used in the government, then you're not really doing your job. So that's one of the issues I had with that kind of stuff. And the other thing is, I want to point out, sometimes I say stuff when I do these podcasts, I think about what I'm going to do before I do it, and then I just let it fly when I sit down and turn the camera on. And I want it to be that way. Sometimes I'll write things up and do it that way, like read a statement or something that I prepare beforehand, but not usually. I think it's important to talk this way, the way I do talk, the way I present it. And I know I use some strong words sometimes against people, but when I read articles from debunkers, people who aren't serious and are writing for major publications like Forbes, I'm letting it fly. Like I said months and months and months ago, like the gloves are off. I'm not no more Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, these people who are completely against this for some reason, they denounce it, they make fun of it, they make people who are interested in getting to the bottom of this cover up, right? They make us look like we're crazy. So that's why I talk the way I do about those people, because I think that, you have to fight fire with fire sometimes. And I think, I'm sick of it. I know that there's something going on, as does a lot of people who are interested in this subject and have studied it or experienced things themselves. So that's why sometimes I talk the way I do. And I just I think that's how we have to be at this point. I mean, there's no more games as far as I'm concerned, right? It's time to take the gloves off and just say right out that you're the one. Anybody who stands in the way of this, the debunkers, and they're going to make fun of us and call us, make us look like we're stupid or silly or things like that, or bunch us up into a bunch of other conspiracies and make us sound like a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists. Well, I'm not going to stand for that. So I'm going to call these people dopes and dummies and idiots and morons, and I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks, and I don't care what anybody says. That's just the way I'm going to handle it. Anyway, there was something here from Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. He had a statement that he provided to the in the aftermath of that hearing on Wednesday, Sean Kirkpatrick has released a statement, and I thought it was interesting to go through it. Here we go. Here it says, "Let me begin by saying that the following are my own personal observations and opinions, which do not necessarily represent the official DoD or intelligence community positions. Yesterday, the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs held an open hearing on UAP, during which a government cover-up of extraterrestrials was alleged. I wholeheartedly applaud congressional efforts to get to the truth about what UAP are and the risks to both pilot safety and national security. I am absolutely committed to transparency on both the historical mission and the operational mission. As the director of AARO's amazingly talented, devoted, and highly motivated team, however, I cannot let yesterday's hearing pass without sharing how insulting it was to the officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join AARO, many with not unreasonable anxieties about the career risks this would entail, that have been working diligently, tirelessly, and often in the face of harassment and animosity to satisfy their congressionally mandated mission. They are truth seekers, as am I, but you certainly would not get that impression from yesterday's hearing. AARO was established by law to investigate the allegations and assertions presented in yesterday's hearing. Allegations by its witnesses of retaliation, to include physical assault and hints of murder, are extraordinarily serious, which is why law enforcement is a critical member of the AARO team, specifically to address and take swift action should anyone come forward with such claims. Yet, contrary to assertions made in the hearing, the central source of those allegations has refused to speak with AARO. Furthermore, some information reportedly provided to Congress has not been provided to AARO, raising additional questions about the true commitment to transparency by some congressional elements. So basically what he's saying here is that the central source of that hearing, he's saying that Grusch has been refusing to speak with them. And also he's saying that Congress has not provided AARO some information, apparently. Now, a lot of people are saying in the UFO community that this is false. Now, Sean Kirkpatrick is saying that no, this is how it is. Now, I don't know. I have no idea, but maybe if Grusch is not providing information to AARO for some reason, if he has refused, then there must be a reason for that. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the Title 10 or remember, actually there's a difference in the kind of information that AARO could get with relating to classified material. There's like Title 10 access, which AARO has, but it doesn't have Title 50. So that's more highly classified, more sensitive information that in the Title 50 category. So is that the reason why Grusch has not been talking with AARO? We just don't know. I guess we need to find out. But a lot of people have felt in the UFO community that Sean Kirkpatrick has been lying sometimes to Congress, but maybe what might be happening here is that he hasn't received all the information too that AARO needs, because the Department of Defense is withholding it from AARO because they don't have the Title 50 authority. That could have something to do with that. We really don't know. But whatever the case, right? Whether Kirkpatrick is lying or whether Grusch is refusing for reasons related to Title 50, we just don't know. This needs to be investigated. So I don't know what to say about this, right? Other than we need to get more investigation into this before anybody can really say anything, because I don't know what to say about it. But anyway, I'll read the rest of his comment here. He says, the subcommittee, whose questions and oversight duties are irreproachable and in genuine need of answers, has never asked AARO for an update on the reporting system, the historical review, the operations, and the S&T strategy that AARO leads and is undertaking. A rational person watching the hearing might reasonably assume that both the witnesses and the members had an understanding of the department's and the intelligence community's progress since the establishment of AARO around this time last year, only naturally leading them to conclude that AARO has been ineffective, non-transparent, and delinquent in its legislative mission. AARO briefs the Defense and Intel committees regularly, and since the last National Defense Authorization Act, the Homeland Defense, S&T, and several other committees as well. I am deeply disappointed with the denigration of AARO's dedicated men and women hailing from the Department of Defense, intelligence community, and civil partners who are pouring their hearts out working this issue on the behalf of Congress. AARO has the authorities and resources necessary to execute this mission to meet congressional intent, and as we've stated before, AARO welcomes anyone with knowledge of any of these allegations or programs to talk to us in a safe, secure, and appropriately cleared environment. Rest assured, AARO will follow the data wherever it leads. Finally, to be clear, AARO has yet to find any credible evidence to support the allegations of any reverse engineering program for non-human technology. Also, to be clear, none of the whistleblowers from yesterday's hearing ever worked for AARO or was ever a representative to AARO, contrary to statements made in testimony and in the media. Well, I don't know what he's talking about there, but here's the thing. Something funny's going on here. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, again, I always say this: when you can't trust the Pentagon when it comes to UFOs. You just can't trust them when it comes to UFOs. You just can't. How can anybody trust them after all these years? They've been covering it up for decades, for 70 plus years now. How can anybody trust them? So I just don't know about this. Now, he's standing up for them here. Kirkpatrick's standing up for everything that's been going on with AARO and everything, but it's not good enough. Because they should have been able to get to the bottom of this already. And no matter what he's saying here, no matter what's true or not true with regards to Grusch not talking to him or people in Congress not working with them, whatever the case, right? It's still not enough. I mean, they had that hearing. We had that hearing with Kirkpatrick, and he's saying they don't have anything. There were people that have met with them. But according to him, as far as he's concerned, that's not credible evidence. So I guess the problem for Kirkpatrick apparently is that he hasn't been given anything that's credible. I mean, none of the testimony is in his mind is credible from people who were working in these programs that have met with AARO that we know about. So how is that not credible? I guess to him, credible means actually seeing the materials himself. That's what it must mean. I can't figure out otherwise. I mean, what's going on here? We need something needs to be fixed with this whole issue with AARO and the Congress and some of the whistleblowers. There needs to be some more action here. I don't know what needs to be done, but this is unacceptable. Again, we keep getting this. We keep getting these same statements. This is from AARO or from Susan Gove with the Department of Defense, right? No credible evidence to support the allegations of reverse engineering program for non-human technology. To me, that's an outright lie. I mean, I know this. It's coming from the Department of Defense, not just the AARO has not been presented with this information, but some people within the Department of Defense certainly know about this. That's why it feels like a giant lie. And just because perhaps Sean Kirkpatrick hasn't been presented with the undeniable proof in the form of a recovered craft or dead alien body, right? Just because he hasn't been shown those things personally, right? Well, that's too bad. I mean, you did have people talking to them, obviously, telling them things, and that he doesn't think that's not credible, according to him, or the Department of Defense. But at the same time, the Department of Defense has never been credible on this. You start back with the Roswell incident. They've just never been credible. They've never been credible, ever. They've never been credible. They talk about not seeing credible evidence. They've been lying all these years. They just don't want to admit it. They just need to get this monkey off their back somehow and just, this is... Yeah, okay, you know what? We've been lying. It started way back when. It started in 1947. Yep, we've been lying. Here it is. That's what they need to do. Yeah, of course there's going to be a lot of people upset, but there's people right now who are upset. What about the people who already know about this or people who suspected it for a long time? Right? There's a lot of people out there who already know that there has to be these recovery, there are crash retrieval programs, most certainly. Anybody who studied the Roswell incident would know for a fact that there's definitely been, the government's definitely been hiding things. There's just no question. There's too many witnesses. And that was just one case, right? There's been multiple other cases talked about over the years, but the Roswell case stands out to me because at that point, I don't think that the United States government was prepared, and they had to do a lot of backtracking. They actually admitted the truth at first. They did recover a flying saucer. Within like 4 or 5 hours, they changed their tune and said, no, just a balloon. But then all these years later, you had Jesse Marcel and all these other people that were in the Army, deathbed confessions, right? If people don't know, I see again. I have a problem my problem with the mainstream media is that they always say that there's no evidence, but you go and you look at all the people that were involved in Roswell who talked about this, who provided testimony. Some of them signed affidavits, like the Walter Haut. Some people provided deathbed confessions, right? There's just so many witnesses to it, right? It happened, and the Air Force never had anything in response, really, except junk, talking about dummies falling from the sky in the 50s and things like that. So how could anybody trust them when it comes to this stuff? And then you have him saying that they have no credible evidence. And there is credible evidence. What about the witnesses that have already been talking with AARO? There's definitely some witnesses that have talked to AARO that provided evidence. What about Robert Salas? So that wasn't credible? The 1967 Malmstrom incident where a flying saucer showed up and shut down the nuclear weapons? That's not credible? He's been talking about this for years, along with other witnesses. I mean, how could that not be credible? I mean, you just think they're lying? Does that make them, I guess it's not credible. Robert Salas said it, so who cares about who's he? Not credible to me. Well, it's unfortunate, but what it seems like what's going on here to me is that the control group is keeping this stuff from AARO, and then Kirkpatrick feels compelled to say we still have no credible evidence. Credible evidence to him has to be documentation that shows the details, how something was recovered, pictures, film, video, actual craft, actual bodies, things like that. That's what he needs, apparently, before he can consider anything credible. The words of people, the testimony from people is not going to be considered credible in his eyes. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about that. It's confusing. A lot of us were hoping that AARO was going to bring us to the promised land, but they really haven't, and they've been. To say that people who have been talking with them are not credible, I mean, I just don't know what to say about that. So let's talk about Robert Salas again. How could that not be credible? How could that not be credible? I mean, this guy's been talking about this for years. I mean, and there's other witnesses too, along with Salas. So how's that not credible to me? I don't know. But that's how Kirkpatrick sees it. Credible evidence to him is going to be something that I don't think that the secret control group's going to allow AARO to see. So that's how I feel about it anyway. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.